Welcome guys. Well, today's the day. Got the 1.05 beta patch has just been released, and I've messed about with it for a little bit, and I have to admit, on first impressions, I am pretty impressed. There's obviously a couple of bugs in it, but I won't focus on the bugs because they'll fix them in time. So I'll just focus on the features. So I haven't delved into much of the content yet. Obviously it's only just come out, but the first thing I did was I wanted to check out this Beam Draught, and yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it. I'm just going to turn the volume down a bit. So yeah, there's quite a lot of stuff going on with these Beam Draught. As you can see, they changed quite a lot. So you can make some pretty unique ships now, and like I say, I haven't messed about with it too much, but I'll just give my first impressions about these Beam Draught. So with the beam, the main thing with the beam, if you lower it, you get a better turning circle, you get better acceleration, you get a better operational range, so that'll affect power projection and also your probabilities of getting favourable mission encounters. And you also get less flooding, spreading, which I don't know how that's going to work, because that's obviously a new feature that I haven't actually played the game yet. I haven't played any battles, so I haven't seen any of the new combat features. I've just been messing about with the shipbuilding. So yeah, if you lower the beam, you get quite a lot of cool stuff from it. You do, however, get quite a lot of bad stuff from it as well. So your base accuracy is worse on your guns. Your accuracy modifiers are worse as well. So you get worse penalty to the sea waves, your cruising speed, and your manoeuvring penalties. So it has got quite a lot of negative aspects in terms of shooting, which is quite bad, obviously. You're also easier to flood, so although flooding doesn't spread as much, you do take more flooding damage. So until I actually play, I won't know which is the better system, whether to have less flooding but it spreads a lot, or more flooding but it doesn't spread. You also, although your ship's got a tighter turning circle, it's also less responsive. So if you're turning from left to right, then there's a longer time delay between the actual turns, so it's harder to snake. So it's easier to do tighter turning circles, but it's harder to snake around, so that could be a problem. But the major issue with lowering the beam, although the gun accuracy is bad, the major issue is your gun damage received and your torpedo damage received. So you take considerably more damage from shells and torpedoes, and as you can see, also your ricochet chances are considerably worse. So yeah, it's got a lot of negatives going for a low beam. Like I say, you're going to be shooting, your accuracy's worse, and you're going to be taking more damage. So yeah, it's not perfect. It's probably situational when you're going to want a lower beam or a higher beam. But its main benefits is the cost. So as you can see here, we're at 191 million. If I put this back up to its default state, it's gone up 47 million. So it's gone up by a quarter. So you can save 25% of your ship's cost by reducing this down to the lowest. So yeah, you do take a lot of penalties, but 25% cheaper ship, that's pretty impressive. Obviously, with it being having a tighter turning circle as well, you're going to have an easier time dodging torpedoes, as long as you're not trying to snake, as long as you're just doing a circle rather than a snake, you're going to have an easier time dodging torpedoes. And the other thing as well that's good about lowering the beam is you get more power projection. So yeah, if you're building a ship out for power projection, then you're definitely going to want to lower the beam. But its major drawbacks are quite bad. Receiving more damage from guns and from torpedoes, and obviously your base accuracy is worse. So yeah, it's definitely a compromise. Okay, so onto the draft now. So if you lower the draft, then you get better base accuracy this time. So lowering the beam makes it worse, but lowering the draft makes it better. So if you lower them both, you actually even the accuracy modifier out. So now you're not taking any base accuracy penalties if you lower them both. You do get less penalties to your maneuvering accuracy penalty and your sea waves, so that's pretty good as well. But as you can see, the cruising speed penalty is still there. So if you lower them both, you're going to take double cruising speed penalty. So if you like if you like the cruising speed penalty, which I can't blame you if you do, but if you're particularly fond of it, this might not be the build for you. Yeah, you get better acceleration as well. So lowering the both, you get better acceleration with both of them. So it's going to be incredibly quick to speed up. And you are also lowering the draft gives you a higher ricochet chance on this one. So they balance each other out again, just like with the base accuracy. Lowering the draft and the beam at the same time balances the base accuracy and the ricochet chance out. So yeah, that's good. Also, your ship is less visible. So, oh, that also applies to your beam as well. So lowering them both, the enemy's going to have a lot harder time spotting you. I haven't actually looked to see how much difference it makes, but we've got 10,000 here. If we put them both up to middle, so in the default state, come on, it's 2/3 the amount of the default state. So you're 2/3 harder to spot, which is pretty good. Yeah, your flooding doesn't spread as much either when you've got low draft. So again, I don't know how that works in the game, but the flooding might make a big difference if it spreads. So If that's the case, then having a lower draft will fix that. Obviously you've got a flooding penalty from lower beam, I think, or maybe they're both the same. Water spread. Oh, it's actually worse, sorry. It's the flooding chance that's less. So they balance each other out, they're the opposite to each other. So you nullify the flooding penalties by lowering them both, or raising them both, or keeping them both even. Levels out the flooding penalties. Yeah, there are a few negatives to lowering the draft again, as before with the beam. Your flooding time for repair is worse. So, as you can see at the bottom there, the ship repairs for flooding, and also your speed penalty from taking flooding is worse. So yeah, that's one bad thing. You also got less turning circle, a worse turning circle, with a lower draft. So this one's higher, this one's lower. So they kind of balance each other out, which is good. The main problem is, though, your ship's less responsive in the snaking effect with a lower draft as well. So if you lower them both, you've got a doubly less responsive ship. So that could be a problem. You also have worse operational range with the draft lower. So you get a better operational range with the beam lower, but a worse operational range with the draft lower. So I suppose that evens itself out if you lower them both. The major problem with it, though, is, again, like with the beam, you take more gun damage and torpedo damage. So if you lower them both, you're going to have a very vulnerable ship. It's going to be pretty flimsy. Obviously, the main benefits to lowering the draft, the same as with the beam, is the cost. So 191, if we put it back up to the default state, and again it's 43 million cheaper to lower it down to the bottom. So you're saving like 80 odd million or 90 million by lowering them both to the bottom. So it's practically 50%, well, 30% cheaper if you lower them both. Obviously, having better gun accuracy is a good thing for lowering the draft, so that's always good. And the higher ricochet chance as well, that was the other major difference for lowering the draft. So it's mainly ship cost, accuracy and ricochet chance. The major drawbacks are obviously the receiving more damage from torpedoes and guns, and having a worse turning circle and less responsive. So yeah, it makes you a lot less agile, and also a worse power projection, worse operational range. So it's not perfect. It has pros and cons lowering the draft. And also you're very susceptible to flooding. So although your flooding chance is better, your water spread, your ship repairs, and your speed penalty from flooding are all worse. So yeah, it's not brilliant. So yeah, obviously if you put these up to the max, then it's just exactly the same as what I've just said, but in reverse. So putting the beam up to the max will give you the best accuracy and the best gun and torpedo damage resistance, but if we have a look at the cost, it also raises the cost exponentially. So it's 100 million more to raise that to the max. So yeah, do you want to save 100 million and lower it to the bottom? Or do you want to spend 100 million and get the accuracy and torpedo and gun resistance? I don't really know what the best situation would be, to be honest. But I can see a couple of design philosophies, possible design philosophies going on here. So either have really low on both and have an incredibly cheap ship. Most of the penalties are evened out because a low draft, a lot of the things are opposite to a low beam, so you nullify a lot of the penalties by lowering them both, and obviously you save yourself 100 million. It's also very good at dodging torpedoes, although it is quite unresponsive, so you're not very good at snaking. It is really good at just doing a full 360-degree turn. It's got a pretty decent power projection as well, works out about the same as if you just kept them both in the middle, so that evens itself out. But obviously the major drawback to this is the torpedo and gun damage received. It's considerably worse. So you can see here they've added it into this ship details bit on the side, which is great. This is really helpful. So we've got -20 and +10. If we put these to the default state, come on. So -20 to -43. So you lose 23% gun damage, but that's the major one, is the torpedo damage. It's gone from +10 to -25, so there's 35% extra torpedo damage if you lower them both. So 23% extra gun damage and 35% extra torpedo damage. So I reckon if you were gonna lower them both to the bottom, you're probably better off taking some anti-torpedo. Not quite sure how much you'd need, but if we look here, torpedo damage +10, -59, so -36. So some form of anti-torp, even anti-torp 1 is 23% better. So you could just take anti-torp 1 and that might level it out a bit. So yeah, they're the major differences in this design philosophy to just having it in the center default position. And then another design philosophy is having the beam up to the maximum and the draft down to the minimum. This way you get double accuracy penalty bonus. So the beam accuracy is best when it's at full. The draft accuracy is best when it's at minimum. So you get double the accuracy. I don't know whether it works out at double, it probably doesn't. But if we have a look at, say, 20,000 kilometers on this gun, it's 3%. So we put them both in the middle. That'll do. 2.4%, so you get 6% better accuracy at 20 kilometers. So it's not loads, but I mean 6% on 2.4 is 25% better. So you get 25% better accuracy at 20 kilometer range if you put the beam up to the full and the draft down to the minimum. As you can see, it's quite expensive. I didn't look to see how much it was in the default state. So it's 300 million with beam and full. So it's basically the same. So it's the same cost, but putting the beam up to the full and the draft down to the minimum, you're going to get all them accuracy buffs. Also, this is going to balance out the gun and torpedo damage that you would take if you had them both at the minimum. So that kind of levels that out, which is good. Got minus 61 and minus 36, so that's actually pretty decent. That's better than the default state. I think this is the highest ricochet chance as well. Yeah, ricochet chance. So you have a really good resistance, but you also have the best ricochet chance and the best gun accuracy possible. So this looks like potentially the best system. It's just quite expensive. So if we have a look at the other one, it's only 191. This one's 300. It's more than 50% more expensive, so we'd have to actually see how it works out, whether it is a better system or not, to spend that extra 55 to 60% and have a really durable, really accurate gunship, or whether to spend 50-60% less and have more ships. So yeah, I'm not sure yet. I'll have to actually do some testing, see what I think is the best option. It's also pretty agile as well. It's I think so anyway. Let's have a look. Let's have a look down here. Turning circle. Oh, turning rate. Oh, it's the least agile. Ah. So that's the major downfall to it. It's got the worst turning circle. So it'd be the other way round to have the best turning circle. So it's the most responsive, but the least agile. So you're better at snaking, but you're worse overall at just doing a 360-degree turn. So yeah, 300 million. It's the same as the default cost. So I think this is a better system than leaving it at default. So if you're not too sure about going for a super cheap ship, which is pretty susceptible to damage, then I recommend trying this out. I reckon it's probably a better alternative. The major downfall to it though, power projection, minus 25% operational range. Minus 25% operational range. So although you get really good buffs, you get 50% less operational range. So I don't know whether that works out at 50% less power projection, but it's definitely going to hurt. So you definitely need more of these ships if you're going to try and stave off a blockade. Also as well, I think it's pretty vulnerable to flooding. Oh, flooding chance minus 12. So you get a speed penalty from flooding, and the water spread is worse. And then this one's got worse flooding altogether, really. Oh, the flooding chance is actually not too bad on this. So it looks like you get less chance of getting flooded, but if you do get flooded, then you're in for a rough time. So there you go. That's what my first impression is. So yeah, I hope this has been interesting to watch. If it hasn't, then just give it a go yourself. You might figure something out that I've missed. So if you want to stick around, I think I'm gonna just do an AI versus AI battle. I've basically designed the ships identically, apart from one of them's got the beam turned up to full, and the other one's got the minimum amount of beam and draft. So because the cost difference is about 50% more expensive, these are like 200 and they're 300, or the other way around, sorry. So that's like 600 millions worth. That's why I've only got 2 of these. Them 3 combined are about 600 million as well. So it works out about even in cost having a 3 versus 2. So yeah, let's have a look, see what the AI does. If I just leave them on AI. Unfortunately, it looks like their ships are using HE rounds, which are not going to do anything against these ships, because I've put so much armour on them. Put 20 on the main belt and 22 on the main deck. So yeah, HE rounds aren't going to do anything. I don't know what they're messing about at. If they had AP rounds, they'd easily penetrate. Well, I'll take over then, rather than just leave it on AI. I'll move them in a bit closer. Hopefully they'll change to AP rounds if I move a bit closer. I don't want to tell my ships to use AP, because I want them to use AP, so it's an even fight. So while they're shooting HE rounds at me, I'm not going to change my ammunition. What I'm going to do instead is change the ammo to AP only. So So I'm just going to have to adjust the armour a tad to accommodate for that. Okay, let's try again. Well, the turning circle on these is pretty awful. I wonder if they've got a better turning circle. They should have. So it doesn't look like they want to engage, which is a shame. So I've got a feeling that the ships, my ships, the ones with better gun accuracy and better shell resistance, I reckon they are probably a better battleship versus battleship design. But then these ships that are cheaper, probably a better design for against any other type of ship, because they've got obviously 50% more guns. Obviously the accuracy is slightly worse, but we can have a look. He's obviously going to be suffering from instability damage, which he is. He's got some manoeuvre penalties as well, of course. But he's got 21. Mine's got 18. So the reason that is because my ships, the Italian ones, have got much worse main towers. I think they're about a quarter as cheap, maybe a third as cheap. So that's why the accuracy is nowhere near as good, I think. Then again, it's at 21, so it could be because he's doing manoeuvres. So yeah, it seems about equal because the tower difference. So it looks like there's about 5% difference in the towers, which shouldn't make too much difference considering the target ship size is like 220%. Wow, 390%, right, so although this ship has got much worse space accuracy, because that ship has got a much bigger design, much larger ship, because its beam is at full, it's actually 217 versus 390, it's almost twice as easy to hit. So yeah, that's one bad thing that I hadn't considered. But if you look here at the damage received and damage dealt, my ships are doing considerably more damage, so as I suspected, battleship versus battleship, this is probably a better design, having the beam up to full and the draft down to minimum. I don't think it helps that these are sailing quite far away from the crippled ship though. Although he does look like he's turning a bit. Unfortunately for them, they haven't finished this ship off, so he's still shooting. It looks like he's still got all of his guns active, and he's got a 38% chance to hit as well. So that's pretty poor of him to not finish off that ship. That'd knock out four times 3 15-inch barrels if he just finished him off. Look at that ricochet chance though. Well, not chance, percentage. 113 ricochets. So it looks like that's one of the major factors in this. It's not just the amount of shell damage you take, but the ricochet chance. Well, this isn't going quite as I expected. See, this is the other thing that's good about having cheaper ships. If you lose a ship, you've still got more guns than they have. So even if I lose this ship, or if they lose this ship I should say, they've still got another ship. So yeah, I'm undecided which is better, to be honest with you, because I reckon this, having the cheap ships with the lowest beam and draft, is going to be a better option against the smaller ships, because you've got more guns, and versus the smaller ships, more guns is the way forward. So considering they're doing a fairly decent job against the battleships, which I did not expect, I'm potentially siding with the lowest beam and lowest draft, rather than just lowest draft and highest beam like my ships are. Interesting. Now, if they didn't separate their ships out and leave one at the back vulnerable, like they did with this ship, I reckon that they would have a better time here. Because obviously he's got a worse accuracy than he would have if he was close to the trailing ship. And he's down to 40%. Oh, why has he got HE rounds? Didn't I take them off? Is that a bug? They've got HE rounds. I took them off. You saw me take them off. I took them off and then had to adjust the armour. Yeah, for some reason they've got them again. Maybe they've got a minimum amount. They've always got some HE rounds. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. Well, he's actually ricocheted a lot of shots. So I think the only reason that this has gone the way it has is because the AI didn't control that first ship very well, and it left its broadside facing, and then the other two ships abandoned it. because I reckon if it was player controlled, that these cheap ships would probably be the better option. Don't know. Very interesting though. Yeah, look at this, they're gonna win. Even though the AI didn't play very well, the cheap ships won. And they only lost 1 out of the 3. They destroyed 2. And they were 27 plus 4, 31 million cheaper as well. Well, 29 million. So yeah, there you go. that was a turn up for the books. I was not expecting that, I have to admit. So yeah, well, I'll end the recording there, guys, while I carry on testing the new features out. So I hope it was interesting. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care, and I'll see you soon.